So, Antonia, you and I have a friend. His name is Dan. He has INFP preferences. We've had him on the show multiple times talking about all of his adventures all over the world. And he often goes on long hikes. And I joke when he comes on to share all his adventures, because from time to time he comes onto the show and shares. I joke with people and I say he's living the INFP dream, right? The career dream of an INFP who doesn't have to go to the office, doesn't have to clock in on a 40-hour work week, although he's done that in his life. He has had to do that. But at this point, in his 50s, early 50s, he's developed and built a life for him that's custom tailored for the career he wants to pursue, which really isn't a career on paper at all. It's being an adventurer, going on hikes and tailoring his life to him and how he's wired. So today we're going to talk about INFP careers. And if you just heard that story and you're an INFP, you probably resonate with the idea of choosing a career that feeds your soul, that makes your heart sing, that lights you up, that makes you feel like you're not just going and plugging yourself into the matrix and working that 40-hour work week, although some INFPs can do that and they like it. We'll talk about that today. But you probably want a career that fulfills you and makes you feel alive. And I don't believe that matters what career you pick, as long as it's in alignment with you as an INFP. I believe that's the key. So today as we talk, be thinking about what is an alignment for me. As we talk about the different career paths that INFPs can take, what resonates with you listening right now? We want to know that, and we'll have an opportunity for you to come back and comment to us after this show is over.
Well, I think there's a premise here that we're going to address as well, that it's not just choosing a career that resonates with who you are right now, but the career you choose is also going to shape you. It's going to change you. And so it's not just what you want, it's also who you want to become. And the career you choose, because you're spending 40 plus hours a week there, that's going to be a big influence on the kinds of skills you develop, the problems you're solving every day, the things you're focusing your attention upon. All of that matters. I'm started, I think it was just this last, because we're doing a series, I think it was the last episode we did with ENTPs where we introduced this word careership. And a few weeks ago, we did a podcast on leadership.
Yeah.
And so I looked up the etymology of the word leadership and discovered that the word ship, the pi root of that ending, is related to the word shape.
Yeah.
And anything that with the word ship in it is going to be something that also shapes us, like a relationship. It's a way of relating to another person that changes who we are because we're relating to them. That's what a relationship is. And in some ways, there's careership, meaning that the career we choose is also going to shape who we are. And so it's not just what I want, it's also who I want to become.
So this idea of careers came about, this whole series of podcasts came about because we're in the middle of running our Personality Life Path program. It's a mentorship. It's an 8-week mentorship. We have students and clients come and work with us. And every single week during this mentorship, as a group, we look at one of the archetypical energies of the Jungian cognitive functions. Now, that's a huge mouthful. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry. You don't need to know. Point is, we look at the different areas of life that these functions represent, both in the world energetically, but also how they relate to us and our personality types, all different personality types in the mentorship. We've been noticing that people in this program are going through a transition moment in their life. That's usually why they join this program. If you almost look at your personality type, like INFP, that's the you are here dot on the map of your life. That's how your mind is wired. That's how you learn information, how you make decisions. But it doesn't necessarily give you a path to pursue. It just tells you who you are. So we're working with these people over 8 weeks to discover the path that each person, now that they know how they're attuned as a personality type, which path is the right path for them. Obviously, people are bringing transition moments up around relationships or lifestyle. But a big one, Antonia, is career. Many people, in fact, I would say most people in transition in that program, even the INFPs, are in the midst of transition of career. And they're asking questions like, well, what if I've been doing something for 20 years? Can I change a career trajectory? Is that available to me? What if I'm just starting out on my career? I mean, people are at different stages throughout this. And so this came up and we thought, we need to address this and talk about careers for all the types. And today we're talking about INFP, but we don't want to just talk about and say, okay, these are the careers for you, INFP. I want to give you some principles to go from, so that you as an INFP can look and say, okay, all this is available to me. Which one resonates with me the most?
Yeah. And it's not in necessarily an obvious list. I just want to quibble on one thing you said.
Uh-oh.
No, it's not a big one. It's an easy one. And I think your main point was that we look at type. Like when we look at type, it diagnoses a lot of things that we can understand about ourselves, but it doesn't necessarily give us a specific direction unless we know right how to use it in that way. And you said it tells you who you are. And I just want to make a tiny little quibble because we are talking to INFPs. I just want to say it tells you how you're pre-wired.
Certainly.
To look at things.
It doesn't tell you the essence of who you are,
It
INFP
cannot.
Listening to me right now.
That's
yes.
right. Right. And so
assuming we're not saying that, yes.
we are not saying that. We're
Clearly.
not saying it tells you who you are, but it does tell you an awful lot about how your mind is wired to experience the world. And in some ways, it can also communicate a little bit of stewardship, like the kinds of things that you are pre-wired to pay attention to and to make sure are represented. And in part, that is, evidenced in your cognitive functions. Now, we want to make sure, because people at all levels of understanding are going to, could be watching this episode or listening to this episode. So we want to make sure that it's accessible to somebody who just discovered they have INFP preferences. We're going to make this simple enough to access, but we're also going to speak in a little more of a technical way for anybody who's a type geek out there and wants all the information, all the technical stuff. So for the type geeks, the two functions that you're pre-wired to use are introverted feeling or authenticity as your dominant, or what we call your driver function. And it's supported by your auxiliary, or what we call the co-pilot, of extroverted intuition or exploration. And the reason why I mentioned that is because I talked about stewardship and understanding that you're pre-wired to focus on authenticity and also exploring ideas.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's your job to make sure that those two things are not forgotten, like the importance of those things. So when you're choosing a career, you want to make sure that that aspect of yourself is not lost in your choice.
Absolutely. And so those are some of the principles we'll be talking about in a moment. Before we do that, though, I've got a handy list. I did my research, Antonia. Mm-hmm. I brought a handy list of all the top 10 INFP career choices according to the internet.
All right.
So this is internet-based research.
Drum roll.
The top 10 of what the internet says are the proper, or this is not well researched. The internet says this. Okay, number 1. So for INFPs career choices according to the internet, number 1 is writer. Number 2, graphic designer. 3, counselor or therapist. 4, social worker. 5, psychologist. 6, artist. 7, musician. 8, teacher. 9, librarian. I didn't know that was a career, but I guess it is. I thought it was maybe a job.
At least for the time.
Yeah. And then 10 is nonprofit work or advocacy, which that also makes sense.
Yeah.
So do you think that's a pretty good list?
I think that's an excellent list. And actually, somebody out there is a librarian. They're going to be like, what do you mean you didn't know it was a career? You thought it was a job? I think you have to get like a master's.
What kind of librarian are you talking about?
No, I'm not kidding. It's like to become a librarian is like a big deal.
Are you serious? Like, I remember, I'm thinking of a librarian as like a kid going to my local library in the town I lived in.
Yeah.
And the woman who lived behind the counter was older than anyone else I knew in my entire life.
So much so that you just use the word lived as if she never left. She was just there all the time.
Yes. I mean, but that's the image I have of her. Are you kidding? I didn't know. This is a whole new... Live on air, I'm finding out a whole new piece of information I did not know. So I'm like a little blown away by this.
I think I could be wrong. I mean, obviously...
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just...
No, I mean, I'm not saying that it's a hill I'll die on, but I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, librarian is you have to have like,
Stuff.
lots and lots of education specifically in becoming a librarian.
You have to have a master's degree in the Dewey Decimal System.
Basically, yeah. No,
is that what it is?
I think so. I don't actually know.
Do they even use that system in other countries, or is that just here in the U.S. or?
Okay, you're getting way beyond my pay grade. I don't know any of this stuff. I just know that librarian is not. It's not.
You hit a librarian button. Now I'm like so fascinated.
I'll just say this: you don't go straight from flipping burgers to becoming a librarian.
That's a pull quote.
Yeah.
That's a pull quote. We need like a graphic where it says Antonia Dodge episode whatever says you don't just go from flipping burgers to be a librarian, okay?
That's right. It's a whole thing. That's like a whole complicated life path, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, I mean, for the time being, as long as we have libraries.
Yeah. I'm sure AI is going to handle librarian jobs at some point.
Uh-oh.
If they're handling every job, I'm sure a librarian looking up stuff in a Dewey. Some librarian now is going to come and school me. I'm going to get it really bad.
Real bad.
Because they're going to be like, look, dude, you have no idea. And they're going to lay out point by point of just how ignorant I'm about big librarian.
Yeah.
And like the whole career path and the whole industry of librarians. I'm in big trouble now.
Big librarian, is that like big pharma?
Yeah, so we got to move on before I get in myself big library.
It's a coalition of all these librarians who are actually secretly controlling the world.
They have like lobbyists in Washington. It's like in the EU. I mean, it's they're part of NATO now. I mean, it's librarians are a big deal.
That's the thing.
Anyway, back to INFPs and careers.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about this today. So just to reconfigure ourselves, we're going to talk about 4 subtypes of the INFP personality type. Now, these aren't actual types of INFPs. These are flavorings or almost, not performances, but what would you call it? Preferences, or the way you show up to the world. What is the word I'm looking for?
I don't know. The person whose work we're basing this upon, Dr. Dario Nardi, he liked the word variant until recently, when the word variant has been a little co-opted. But they're flavors.
Yeah, flavors.
He resisted the word subtype because he didn't want people to think that, like your type, which there's a lot of information that indicates that we come pre-wired with our type. Like that's a nature thing. Yeah. This is more of a nurture component. This is more about how your environment has helped shape the way how your INFP preferences show up. Yeah. And so you can actually change it. Since it's nurture, it's one of those things where you're not stuck in any specific subtype. But we do definitely find ourselves landing there because of the experiences we've had growing up and because of the careers we choose. Yeah. So this came from Dr. Dario Nardi bringing INFPs, like you listening, into his laboratory, connecting them to EEG brain scan machines, asking a series of questions, already knowing their type, and then watching 4 different patterns of brain scans show up on the brain scan software. So now he started to see this pattern come up where certain career choices were matching the EEG machine scans for INFPs, all the types, but we're talking to you as an INFP right now. So he borrowed some language from Victor Glanko, Dr. Victor Glanko, who works with socionics in Europe. He borrowed 4 words that he's associated with these subtypes. So of the INFP, there's a dominant subtype, creative, normalizing, and harmonizing. And then he also worked in some of Dr. Helen Fisher's work around neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, dopamine, testosterone, estrogen. And they also map to these 4 subtypes of INFP. So we believe as we talk about this today and we identify which subtype you as an INFP are listening along, this is going to help you in your career choice, picking the correct career path for your specific expression of INFP. Maybe you're not like our friend Dan who wants to just adventure all the time. Maybe you do enjoy going to an office and having that stability in your life. And we're going to talk about why today. Let's dive into it.